Hi guys, welcome back to another episode on the show, Control or Be Controlled, a podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And I remain your host, Darlington. Today's guest is Jessica Morris. Jessica, nice to meet you.
It's great to be here, Darlington, and to meet you as well. Thank you.
All right, so after working for over 30 years in higher education, fundraising, and event planning, our guest today walked away from the security of a full-time paycheck to follow God's call. Today, she works for God as an author, poet, spiritual director, and disciple of Jesus Christ. Her books reach deep into the soul of every reader to excavate the garbage and debris that get in the way of a personal relationship with God so that they can live freely in the peace promised by Jesus. Jessica, once again, welcome to Control or Be Controlled.
Thank you.
All right, so I would like us to get into the show proper. I have some questions here for you, and I would like us to get answers from you.
Okay.
All right, so tell us about your experience growing up with an alcoholic minister father.
Yeah, it was difficult. I was the youngest of four children and I grew up in the 1970s and 1980s. So a very different time period in the world. So we had no, internet or cell phones or anything like that. So there was a lot of fun that we had as well. But, my father was a minister, and I do believe he was called to be a minister. He was very good at his job. He was very good at talking to people and sharing the word of God with others. He was a very good speaker. And we lived in a very small town, and the people in the town really loved him, and he loved them. And my mother was raised also in an alcoholic home. And so she was very good at enabling his behavior and keeping the really bad parts of things within our home. And so she taught us by her own behavior how to do that as well, not to share the family secrets outside of the home, so to speak. And so growing up that way, it was very confusing because I really did love church and Sunday school. I especially loved Jesus. I was frightened of God, though, because I think because as a child, when your father, your human father, is scary and he's also your minister, you kind of take it to that place where that's probably how God is too, because a lot of children think of their own father when, God is spoken of. And so it was difficult to sort of reconcile those two things. And, there was a lot of abuse. I'm not going to get into all of that. But the worst thing really was that my father told me that I was a mistake when I was very young, that he and my mother only wanted 3 children and I was the 4th. And I really spent most of my life trying not to be a mistake, trying to be perfect, trying to make sure that nobody else knew that by always pleasing other people and being an asset in every situation. And that's, for a child, that's exhausting. And so by the time I was in high school, I was already well into my own addictions of food and alcohol. And by the time I went to college, I left the church. I completely distrusted organized religion of any kind. And that led to a pretty significant period of just living in my addictions and living in despair. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it took me.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for that wonderful answer. So, you have mentioned that you are in recovery from addictions. Would you like to speak about those addictions specifically
Yes.
and when you recognize they were a problem for you?
If you're asking a question, I can't hear you.
So, you have mentioned that you are in recovery from addictions. Would you speak about those addictions and when you recognize they were a problem for you?
Yes, I started with a food addiction at a very young age in my life. I don't even remember how old I was when I started stealing food from just the family's pantry, and I believe, it was somewhat of a comfort for me, perhaps. It doesn't really matter the reason behind it. I became addicted to compulsive eating at a very young age. And then also because of the way, the society looks at somebody who's overweight, I became addicted to compulsive dieting as well, which is very dangerous as a young person. It looks like you're not there anymore. I don't know if we're still recording. Oh, it looks like you're back now. So, Darlington, are you there?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I stopped talking because I didn't see you anymore. So, do you want me to restart answering that question?
Okay, let's do it again. So I'll ask the question and you restart again. You have mentioned that you are in recovery mode from addictions. Would you speak about those addictions and when you recognized they were a problem for you?
Yes, I was using food from as long as I can remember as a comfort. From the time I was a little child, I was stealing food out of the family's pantry and the refrigerator and hiding and eating it. And then I became, because I started to get a little chubby, I became a compulsive dieter as well. And so my weight went up and down my entire childhood, which just is not healthy. It's not good for the body. I played sports as a child, so I was able to keep my weight down and still eat a lot. I also had a very good metabolism for, as a young child. But the older I got, the harder it was. And by the time I got into recovery when I was 29, I was twice the body size I am today. I stopped weighing myself at some point, but I was probably close to 300 pounds. And I am only 5'4". So that was obese, considered morbidly obese. And so that was my main addiction. I also started to drink alcohol in an alcoholic way at a very young age while I was in high school and even in eighth grade, so around 13, 14 years old, started to use alcohol to just, kind of block out the things that were going on around me. And those two things, if I stopped drinking because I thought I was drinking too much, then I picked up the food and I did that more. Or if I decided I was going to go on a diet and I couldn't eat the food for comfort, then I would drink more. And it just kind of went back and forth like that until I was using both of those substances to a degree that was very reckless. I look back on those days and thank God that I'm still alive, because I put myself in some really bad situations, safety wise, and also, had a lot of health problems because of my obesity. So I really am lucky to be here today, but those are the two addictions that really took me to a place of suicidal desperation before I got into recovery.
Okay, so in the early years of your recovery, when you first started trying to heal from past abuses, how did you keep from picking up your addictions again?
That's a great question. I relied on the other people in recovery for the most part in the very early days, because I had trouble at that point talking to God because of my upbringing. And so I really struggled to pray and ask God for help. And a wonderful woman that was, in the program significantly longer than I was, said to me one time, she said, you can use the group as your higher power to get started. You can ask us to help you walk through these places in your life that you don't know how to get through them. And you can rely on us. And she was real clear with me not to put it on any one person, but to rely on the group as a whole. So if something was going, if I felt like I was going to eat compulsively, or if I thought I was going to pick up a drink, she just said to me, she's like, come to a meeting, sit with other people who are going through it, or make a phone call and ask somebody, please, help me. Can you meet for coffee? Can you talk to me about when you were new in recovery so that I don't feel so alone? And I started doing that because I really was very desperate when I arrived in the rooms of recovery, and I was pretty much willing to do whatever they suggested, because the people that were there who were recovering, they seemed really happy and peaceful. And I had no idea what that felt like. And I really wanted it. And so that's how I did in the early years. That's how I did it. And they eventually helped me to find my way to God as well. And that's, to me, the most beautiful part of that whole process.
All right, thank you so much, Jessica. So tell us what it was like to be a student in seminary when you had no organized religious affiliation.
Oh, that was interesting. I was, most of the people who go to seminary, for the most part, go to become ministers or counselors, spiritual counselors of some sort. And most of them have a religious affiliation, whether they, are a division or a denomination of the Christian church, or there were all different religions at my seminary. So it was a Christian school run by the Moravians, but it welcomed everyone. So there were Muslims, there were Jewish people, there were even some atheists, if you can believe that, at my seminary. And so that just wanted to learn theology. And so most people, when they introduced themselves, they would say their name, and then they would say what their faith was, what their denomination was, what church that they identified with. And for me, it was so odd because I absolutely believed in Jesus Christ and followed Jesus Christ, but I didn't know how to introduce myself. And what happened was very interesting, because in the beginning, I just kind of would fumble around. I'd say my name, and then I would say, well, I follow Jesus. I don't go to church, or I'd make, some sort of comment like that. And then eventually I discovered, while I was in seminary, that the people within my recovery community were my church. Like, that was where I went 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week to be filled up with the peace of the Spirit. And so I just started to say my church is my recovery community, and it felt so right. It felt so beautiful, and it was a wonderful learning experience for me that, for most people, when they think of church, they think of a building. And what I learned also in seminary is that it's not a building. Church really means a translation error in a lot of books, but church is really derived from the word community. And so when Jesus said to build his church, he wanted us to build his community. And so saying that my church is my recovery community fits right into that. It's not walking through life on your own. It's asking for help. It's offering help to other people. And so that was a wonderful life learning lesson for me. Well, it was an academic lesson as well. And which is one of the things I loved about seminary, because I got those kinds of life lessons all over the place while I was there.
Okay, so when did you first recognize your desire to learn more about Jesus?
I was in my first years of recovery, and I was going through some counseling for the traumas of my childhood. And the more that I did that, and the more that I got rid of those things that had been holding me back all my life, because, I resented my father for a really long time. I could not forgive. I considered myself a victim. And while I was a victim as a child, I mean, any child that's born into that, I would believe is considered a victim. When I was going through this work and when I went into recovery, I was 29 years old. So I was a grown woman, and I was still acting as a child. I was still acting as a victim, and I was not taking responsibility for the way I was behaving in my current life. And so when I started to do that, when I started to find ways through the counseling and through my relationship with God and the recovery community to forgive my father, to accept my childhood for what it was, and to grieve the loss of the innocence of being a child, but also to move on from it and not hold it in my being as if it was who I was then. It opened all kinds of space within my soul, within my spirit, to receive that sort of pull from God. And the pull just would not let me go. I started just looking for books about Jesus and the life of Jesus and the history of Jesus and the theology. And I mean, everything that I could find. And I was reading it. And I was, my mentor was, the chaplain where I worked, and I just would sit and talk with him for hours about Jesus, and he helped me with some Bible things that were bothering me. And so that's when I finally put down all of the mess and the garbage from my childhood, that I was able to open up that space. And as soon as I opened that space, as soon as the space was available, Jesus just came flooding in, and I couldn't ignore it. I had to just continue seeking. And that's when that happened.
Okay, thank you so much. So here is my final question for you. Talk about the circumstances that occurred that made you leave the security of full-time work.
Well, I have to say it was a very generous offer from my husband, who said to me after my second book was published, which was my second book, Higher Powered, was an expansion of my master's thesis from when I got my master's in theology. And that was published in September of 2024, so almost 2 years ago now. And things were not going well at my job, not for me particularly, but around me. A lot of people were being fired. The institution was having some big time financial problems, and I was seeing a lot of it sort of crumble around me, and it was affecting me emotionally. It was exhausting to try to be writing because I did feel God calling me to write about Jesus for other people. And so I was trying to write on weekends and, in my spare time. And it was just exhausting. And my husband noticed it. And he said to me, why don't you leave your job and try to make it? Let's just try to do it and see if you can make it work. Because if you don't, give it a try, you're going to kick yourself for the rest of your life for not trying. And he said, we'll figure it out. Financially speaking, we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. And I did not hesitate. The next day I went into work and I gave my notice. And so since November 1st of 2024, I have been writing full time and practicing spiritual direction on the side, which is a certificate that I earned while I was in seminary. And I just thoroughly enjoy what I call working for God, but it doesn't feel like work at all. I just feel so blessed to be able to do this right now. I don't know where it will take us. We're still a one income family, and, I'm not going to be able to do this forever. But I do know that for now, I'm enjoying every moment of it. And I'm praying that if this is what God wants me to continue doing, he will provide for us so that I can keep doing it. And I absolutely trust that.
All right. So, Jessica, how can the audience and listeners connect with you and learn more about what you do?
The easiest way to find anything you want to know about me is on my website. It is my name with my middle initial. So it's jessicalmorris.com. My books are there. My blog, if you want to sign up to receive my blog when I post it, that's there. There's information about spiritual direction there. And there's even a contact form there if you'd like to reach out and ask me any questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Jessica, for coming to my show. Thank you for coming to control or be controlled and sharing your perspective and your insight about God and your journey with us. This has been a very wonderful episode. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you, Darlington. It's been a pleasure to be with you today.
As well as thank you to all my listeners for tuning in today and for also making our time to join us on the show. As always, we appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you so much. So do have a wonderful day, Jessica.
You too, Darlington. Thank you so much.